Most people walk past these trucks without a second look. They see the age, they see the mileage, and they keep scrolling. But there is a small group of buyers who have figured out something the rest of the market has completely missed. These trucks are not cheap because they are bad. They are cheap because most people never bothered to look past the surface. We are talking about trucks that haul, tow, and run to 300,000 miles, sitting in the used market right now for less than a used family sedan. Today, we are breaking it all down. Which trucks, why the market is sleeping on them, and why the gap between perception and reality is one of the best buying opportunities in the used truck market right now. Let's get into it. Number 5. Nissan Frontier, 2005 to 2021. The story of the Frontier starts with a decision Nissan made that most automakers would never survive. They built a mid-sized truck so reliable and so capable that they ran it essentially unchanged for 16 straight years. Same basic platform, same engine family, same chassis architecture. From 2005 all the way into the early 2020s, with barely a cosmetic change anywhere on the body. And that decision, as unusual as it was from an engineering standpoint, destroyed the truck's resale value in the best possible way for used buyers. Because the market looks at a truck that has not changed in a decade and a half and decides it is outdated. It prices it like a leftover, like something that fell behind and never caught up. And right now, a clean, well-maintained Frontier from the 2013 to 2018 range is sitting at $12,000 to $17,000 in most markets. A comparable Toyota Tacoma from the same years is asking $22,000 to $28,000. Same size class, same real-world capability window, same tow rating territory. The only meaningful difference is brand perception. And that difference is doing a lot of work in your favor as a buyer. The 4.0-liter V6 at the center of this truck is one of the most documented reliable engines in the midsize segment. Owners are reporting 350, 0 and 400,000 miles on the original engine with nothing more than routine oil changes and spark plugs. Not a rebuild, not a swap, just maintenance done on time. Tow capacity on V6 versions is rated at 6,500 pounds, meaning boats, utility trailers, and equipment haulers are all within comfortable range for this truck. The chassis was overbuilt for the class from day one, which is precisely why Nissan never felt the engineering pressure to redesign it. A frame that performs at that level does not need to be torn down and started over. And because the platform ran unchanged for so long, the parts ecosystem is enormous. Everything is on the shelf at standard auto parts stores, everything is affordable, and virtually every independent mechanic in the country knows this drivetrain inside out. You are not buying a truck that will strand you waiting on a specialty order. You are buying one of the most serviceable mid-sized trucks on the used market at a price that reflects nothing but a lack of a fresh badge. That is a pure value gap. Number 4. Ford Ranger, 1998 to 2011. The old Ford Ranger is the truck that the used market has essentially forgotten, and that forgetting is doing real work for buyers who pay attention. Most modern truck shoppers look at a Ranger from this era and see a relic. Small cab, basic interior, a design that feels removed from everything on dealer lots today. That perception has driven the floor on these trucks so low that clean examples with the 4.0-liter V6 are sitting at $7,000 to $12,000 in most markets right now. Extended cab, four-wheel drive versions in solid condition are going for $10,000 to $14,000. For context, the base price on a new Ford F-150 in 2026 is over $37,000 before taxes and fees. The Ranger's 4.0-liter SOHC V6 is the same fundamental engine architecture that Nissan used in the Frontier, just produced under Ford. It responds well under load, it is tunable, and the reliability record across hundreds of thousands of real-world examples is strong. Tow capacity on V6 four-wheel drive configurations runs around 5,640 pounds, which handles most trailers a compact truck buyer would realistically use. The parts situation is where this truck becomes almost unfair as a value proposition. Ford sold the Ranger in the United States for over 2 decades without a break, and the aftermarket has had all of that time to build a deep supply chain around it. Brake components, suspension parts, sensors, gaskets. Most of the high-wear items on these trucks are sitting on the shelf at your local auto parts store for $20 to $40. A repair that would run $600 on a newer vehicle runs $150 on an old Ranger, and that cost differential across years of ownership adds up to a substantial amount of money. There is one more detail most buyers overlook. Because the Ranger was never a prestige vehicle, it attracted buyers who needed it rather than buyers who wanted it for the image. The used examples you find today tend to have cleaner maintenance histories, less aggressive wear patterns, and more straightforward service records than trucks with a stronger enthusiast following. The Ranger was bought by people who needed it to work, and they maintained it accordingly. Number 3. Chevrolet Silverado 1500 1999 to 2006 with the 5.3-liter V8. This is the truck where most buyers get confused because on paper the GMT 800 Silverado looks like it should cost significantly more than it does. You have a full-size body, a genuine 5.3-liter LS-based V8, a tow capacity that pushes 8,500 to 500 pounds depending on configuration, and a truck frame built to absorb punishment across decades of hard real-world use. And all of that is available in the used market right now between $9,000 and $17, 0 depending on trim and mileage. The reason it stays this cheap comes down almost entirely to the interior. These trucks are hard plastic from corner to corner. The seats are flat, the dash is purely utilitarian, and the overall aesthetic carries zero luxury ambition. In a market where buyers have been trained to expect ambient lighting and wireless charging, that kind of cabin sends most people back to the listings immediately. But the 5.3-liter LS-based engine in these trucks is not just a reliable engine. It is one of the most heavily documented, most widely serviced, and most deeply understood engines in American automotive history. There are communities of mechanics and enthusiasts who know this platform better than most factory technicians do. Parts are available everywhere. Online guides, forums, and repair documentation for every conceivable issue on this engine run into the thousands of published threads. The knowledge base alone makes owning one of these trucks an entirely different risk profile than owning something with a more obscure powertrain. Hey, real quick, if you are finding this useful, hit that like button. It helps a lot, and let's keep going. 2 ratings on properly configured GMT 800 Silverados push close to 9,500 pounds. That is legitimate full-size territory. These are trucks that contractors, farmers, and fleet operators ran into the 250,000 and 300,000-mile range without major engine work, and the documentation on that longevity is easy to find across owner communities. The 5.3 produces around 285 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers would not embarrass a modern mid-size truck. In a full-size body, on a full-size frame, with a full-size tow rating, available right now for under $15,000 in most parts of the country, the value calculation on this truck is not complicated. Number 2. Ram 1500, 2003 to 2008 with the 5.7-liter Hemi. The third-generation Ram 1500 is one of the most undervalued full-size trucks in the used market right now, and the explanation for that is somewhat unfair to the actual truck. Ram built a complicated reputation through the late 1990s for electrical issues and interior quality problems that left a lot of buyers with a lasting negative impression. That reputation attached itself to the brand and stayed there in buyer psychology long after Ram addressed the underlying problems directly. The 2003 to 2008 generation resolved most of those earlier weaknesses, but buyers who had heard the bad stories never came back to look. And that institutional memory, that lingering hesitation from a previous era of the vehicle, is exactly what keeps these trucks priced well below what the hardware inside them deserves. The 5.7-liter Hemi V8 that started appearing in 2003 models is a genuinely excellent engine. It produces 345 horsepower and 375 pound-feet of torque, and it has a documented track record of running well into the 250,000-mile range with consistent maintenance. The engine is well understood, parts are inexpensive, and the service community around it is large enough that virtually any shop in the country can work on it without hesitation. But the real underappreciated feature of this generation Ram that almost nobody talks about when comparing full-size trucks from this era is the suspension. While GM and Ford were still running solid front axles and leaf spring rear setups on their half-ton trucks, Ram had moved to a coil spring rear suspension on the 1500 models. That sounds like a minor engineering footnote until you spend time behind the wheel. The ride quality on the 2003 to 2008 Ram 1500 is noticeably, meaningfully better than any comparable full-size truck from that same era. Highway imperfections, rough pavement, loaded beds on broken surfaces. The Ram absorbs all of it with a smoothness that was genuinely surprising when these trucks were new and remains one of their most underappreciated strengths today. For a buyer who uses a truck as a daily driver and also needs real towing capability, that suspension advantage changes the ownership experience in a way that is hard to put a number on but easy to feel. Clean examples with the Hemi in decent condition are sitting between $10,000 and $16,000 right now. You are buying 345 horsepower, a real 8,800 pound tow rating, a refined suspension setup that outclasses its competitors from the same years, and a truck the market has largely walked away from because of a reputation that belongs to a different generation of the vehicle entirely. Number 1. GMC Canyon or Chevrolet Colorado, 2004 to 2012. Here is what happened to the first-generation Canyon and Colorado that most buyers never pieced together. GM built these trucks as honest, capable, no-nonsense mid-size work trucks, then quietly stopped promoting them the moment full-size Silverados and Sierras started generating better profit margins on the showroom floor. The trucks fell between two audiences at once. Too small to compete for the full-size crowd, not prestigious enough to win the perception battle against the Tacoma in the mid-size space. And the result is a used market where these trucks are sitting at prices that bear almost no relationship to what they are actually capable of doing. Clean, well-maintained examples in the $7,000 to $12 full range are not difficult to find. And the V8-equipped versions, which use a 5.3-liter LS-based engine, push tow ratings around 6, zeros in pounds, and deliver real-world performance that punches well above what the sticker price implies. But the more interesting story on this platform is the inline 5-cylinder engine that GM developed specifically for the Canyon and Colorado. The 3.5 and later 3. 7-liter 5-cylinder is an unusual configuration that most buyers dismiss immediately without looking at the actual data behind it. It has an unfamiliar sound, an unconventional cylinder count, and no particular reputation attached to it in either direction. But the reliability record across documented real-world examples is genuinely solid. Owners with consistent maintenance histories are reporting 200 zeros in mile odometers with no major mechanical events. And that number is not exceptional for this engine. It is typical for well-maintained examples. The parts ecosystem mirrors what you find with the Silverado, because these trucks share substantial architecture and components with GM full-size platforms. The aftermarket supply chain is deep, and the pricing on common service items is low. The service knowledge base is wide enough that finding a qualified technician is never a challenge. And because the inline 5 never attracted a strong enthusiast following, most of the trucks out there were bought by people who needed them to accomplish something. Meaning, the wear patterns and maintenance records on used examples tend to be far more reasonable than you would expect. The cabin on first-generation Canyon and Colorado trucks is not going to impress anyone walking through a car show. Hard surfaces, basic layout, minimal technology. It is a working interior built to get dirty and get cleaned out. But for a buyer who needs a truck that fits in a standard parking structure, returns meaningfully better fuel economy than a full-size, costs almost nothing to purchase and maintain, and can still pull a real load without complaint, the Canyon and Colorado from this generation solve every part of that problem at a price the market has never properly recognized. They were ignored when they were new, and the market is still ignoring them today. And the buyers paying attention right now are the ones walking away with the better deal. So there you have it. 5 trucks the used market has completely overlooked for reasons that have almost nothing to do with what they are actually capable of. If you need a truck that works rather than one that impresses, any one of these is worth a serious look right now. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next one. Catch you in the next video.